Hi there. Today we are making matzo balls to go in matzo ball soup. I will refer you back to our chicken bone broth if you're looking for the soup recipe, or at least for the stock. We doctor it a little with carrots, celery, onion, but it's basically, and parsley, but it's basically that stock. And I will put a link down below to that. So my mother's family is Jewish. My father's family was not. I grew up, I would say my mother was culturally Jewish, not religiously Jewish. And so you would think we did have some Jewish foods around the house, particularly holiday times of year. But strangely enough, I have absolutely no recall of my mother ever making matzo balls. I might be wrong, she may have. The only memory I have of matzo balls was my grandmother, who lived in San Diego. Zell.
Mm-hmm.
And Zell made her matzo balls about, I don't know, golf ball size, maybe a little bit smaller.
She had bigger balls than that, but that's...
Oh, wow. She's rolling over in her, not a great mausoleum. Anyway, so my idea of what a matzo ball came from my grandmother, Zell. And they were, like I said, maybe golf ball, maybe a bit smaller, ping pong ball size. So imagine my surprise when Rob and I, well, actually the whole family, went to New York City, and we decided to do a thing where we went to 3 different delis. We went to Carnegie Deli, Katz's, and Second Avenue Deli, and ordered the exact same thing at each one of them.
Stunning lack of imagination.
To do a sort of side-by-side comparison over the course of a couple of days. So we went and we ordered matzo ball soup at each one, which we split. And then we also ordered a pastrami on rye, which we also split. And then we decided what we liked the best. We came down in the Second Avenue camp. That was our favorite of the 3. The portions are outrageous. We have a great story about, I think it was Katz's, was it? Where we split the sandwich.
No,
we
it
still had...
Carnegie.
It was Carnegie. We split the sandwich. We still had leftovers that we then took home or took back to the hotel. Rob had half of the leftovers as a meal another evening, and we still had another quarter of that sandwich that came home with us to Vancouver, where Miles ate it. So crazy, like feed a family of 4 with one sandwich.
We had an open house and fed the neighborhood.
That's right. So, but my point here was, imagine my surprise. I digress.
I know. I knew we had to get to the point eventually.
Hey, you also took us way off. So my surprise when we were in these New York delis, and you get this bowl of soup, and the matzo ball is the size of a softball. Mm-hmm. There's just one, and it's massive. And I didn't even know what to do with that because, like I said, I grew up...
I ate mine.
With, Vancouver doesn't have a large Jewish community. There are a couple of delis where you can get matzo ball soup. When I was growing up, that just wasn't a thing, particularly in the hippie kits that I grew up in. You just didn't get it. So to see a softball size instead of, ping pong ball size, and
it was meshuggah.
Bizarre, right? Really bizarre. Very tasty. The recipe we're using today does actually come from Second Avenue Deli. It's a published recipe from them that a friend on Facebook sent me a photo of the recipe in the book. I've made many different recipes over the years. I decided to show you this one partly because it's Second Avenue Deli and it brings the story all the way around, partly because I think that these are some of the best I've had. And the main reason is it is by far the simplest recipe. If you use the recipe even on the tin of matzo meal, there's a resting period and a blah, blah, blah. This is easy. Now, let me get to ingredients though. Yes, we're finally...
I know, you set the record for the longest intro.
Is that a problem?
No, it's...
Yeah, I didn't think so. So water is boiling and I'm going to dump some salt in. That's the 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt, but I'm just salting the water. We have 2 eggs, large.
Sunshine each.
Mm-hmm. This is matzo meal. Now, let me tell you very clearly here. This is not matzo ball mix. That is a separate thing. Manischewitz also makes it. Most of the time you will find the matzo meal will be the brand Manischewitz, but there are other brands. In fact, this one is not Manischewitz. We found in a different deli. in
It's
the
kosher.
city. And they're all kosher. Yeah, not the matzo ball mix, just matzo meal. In a pinch, absolutely, you could grind up, like put in a blender your own matzah until it's a super fine powder. But that's what this is. This is gold. So this doesn't look like much here. This is schmaltz. It looks kind of like tahini.
We'll have to put the choir
Schmaltz?
sound effect in there sooner or later.
Schmaltz is chicken fat. Now, how does one get chicken fat? Obviously, this is not a vegetarian recipe, but there is a way to make it vegetarian, and I'll get to that. Schmaltz is chicken fat. The way you render chicken fat, there's several different ways. You can make your chicken stock, your bone broth, and then scrape the fat off the top. That is certainly one way you can get schmaltz. And then keep it in the fridge or in the freezer because it'll go rancid if you just leave it out, okay? But one of the other ways is if you have chicken skin, or if you roast chicken or whatever, you can pour the drippings off. But if you have chicken skin, say you have a recipe for skinless chicken, take the skin off, and you can either cook it down in the frying pan, or you can put it between 2 cookie sheets in the oven, and that keeps the skin flat. And the skin is so tasty. It's called gribbinus. It's fabulous. But if you're not okay with eating that, that's fine. Chuck the skin, pour off the fat. There will be lots of fat because the chicken skin has loads of fat. Keep it in the fridge.
It's gold.
It is gold, okay? If you are vegetarian, or if you don't have schmaltz,
You can buy it at a deli too.
you can buy schmaltz,
Yeah.
but if you don't have it, you can use an oil here. You can use like sunflower or canola. The flavor will not be the same, but 100% if you are vegetarian, obviously not vegan, then please, obviously your soup also would not be chicken, but whatever vegetable stock you have. You
Miso.
can do this.
You do that.
Then we have baking powder, not soda, and a pinch each of salt and pepper there. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to start by whipping the egg. Whip it good. And then I'm going to dump in that pinch of salt and pepper. A pinch in this case is about a 1/4 teaspoon.
It's a very light seasoning.
That's the salt that's quite seasoned in there. And I think for this recipe, you're counting on your soup being what's seasoned the most. So then I am going to put the schmaltz in there. It's quite runny because it's been out on the counter, but if you take it out of the fridge, it's actually a solid. And sometimes it's whiter than that. Sometimes it's more that golden color.
That's pretty majestic.
All right, so then we have the matzo meal and the baking powder.
And the baking powder, does it just make them fluffy or
Yes,
something? Or?
and that's the thing. So matzo balls can be stodgy. Basically, they're a dumpling. If you've ever had like chicken and dumplings or those sorts of things down in the southern U.S., matzo balls are basically a dumpling.
So you just combine that, somehow extricate it from your whisk.
Yeah, oops. I know how to do that. It's all pokey.
Gumby. Gumby and pokey.
Okay, so when you have it mixed together, the next thing you're going to do is
So it's not like a dough where you have to activate the gluten or anything like
no,
that.
God, no. There isn't. Yeah. Water. Get your hands wet. I forgot to get out a plate. That was something I was going to do. Oh, thank you, Rob. It's probably like this weird level.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting me a plate. Bad prep on my part. So I did get the thing of water, but that was about. So wet your hands. And I'm going, even though in the restaurant, as I said, they made really large ones. The recipe calls for, I think they do 1.5 inches. To me, that's the right size, which I'd say is closer to 1 inch, 1 and a bit. And keep in mind that they swell up to double their size.
Ah, good to know.
So my grandmother would have made them even smaller than this because that's closer to her finished size. And they used to be, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them floating in a bowl of soup as opposed to the one honking big one. So all we're going to do, once you have all your balls made, is we're going to put them into the boiling water and turn it down to a simmer.
Otherwise they break apart.
Exactly. You don't want a hard boil here. You want a nice gentle simmer, and it's going to simmer for 25 minutes. Now you may ask me, Laurel, Laurel, why are you doing this in water when you could do it in the soup itself? Because doesn't it make sense? It would add flavor to the matzo balls. And yes, sometimes you'll find a recipe that does that. And I have done it in the past, but there is a reason why they don't. For lots of the recipes, and that is that the starch in the matzo meal clouds your soup, and a beautiful matzo ball soup has a beautiful golden clear chicken stock with a little bit of vegetable matter in it, whether that's carrots and celery, parsley, whatever, and the matzo balls, and it should not be cloudy, and it will be. Definitely if you cook the matzo balls in there. So that's how easy it is. We're just going to poach them in the water in that salted water for about 25 minutes, and then we will come back and show you. We'll lift them out and we'll put them into our soup and show you how beautiful they are and how much they've expanded. See you then. So it's been 25 minutes, and I wanted to share with you what happened. So you can see they're actually more like 3 times the size. I don't recall this from the last time. I ended up making about a dozen balls about that size, and you can see how large they are. For me, that's too large for ideal. So I would make them even smaller than the ones you saw me making if I were to make them when I make them the next time. Also, because I was on camera, I think I wasn't paying as much attention, and 1 or 2 of them actually have sort of, can you see here? They've sort of fallen apart in there, and I think that it wasn't that that it was a rolling boil, so that wasn't the issue. I think that I didn't squeeze them. I was busy talking to you, and I didn't squeeze them as tightly as I should. So make them
There's so
smaller.
many low-hanging jokes there.
Yeah,
Right?
please don't. So make them smaller, squeeze them quite tightly before you put them in there, and all you do is take them out with a slotted spoon, and then gently place them in your chicken soup, which ours is almost ready, and so we're almost ready to eat. The other thing I would say is if you have more than you're going to be eating, don't store them in your soup, because again, they will dissolve in there. So store them separately in the fridge. And there you have matzo balls, and I hope you enjoy them. Mazel tov.